The Underworld was like to me, there were so many different processes of how I descended to the lowest depths.
Mhm.
What transitioned it, I had the heavenly experience, I felt the oneness, and the climax of it, there was a being that came to me and said, "What do you want?" And that was the climax of what I call the 3 and the 4. So that climax, and there was all this thunderings, all these lightnings, kind of how you hear in the Bible.
Mm.
And I felt this intense fire. I thought I was going to literally die from the fire.
Welcome to a Broaderlenspodcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlenspodcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlenspodcast. Well, thank you for coming on Broaderlenspodcast. It's an honor and privilege to have you on. Yeah, thank you. And I look forward to learning from you. You had a pretty intense, sounds like spiritual awakening and near-death-like experience in the Underworld, which I've never even talked about before. So I'm excited to have you on.
Very thankful to be in the upper world. This is actually the anniversary of, this is the exact day a year ago that I really entered fully into the underworld. The anniversary of, this is the exact day a year ago that I really entered fully into the underworld and descended into the first layer. That first day I descended into the first layer, and then the next day is the lower and lower layers.
Well, happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
That's awesome. Before we get started, maybe you can share a little bit about your upbringing. How were you raised? Where were you from, and so on? Were you religious, spiritual?
So thank you. I was raised very fundamentalist, but I took it even further because I'm a very Saturnian person, very intense. I love very Scorpion, heaven and hell, all of those things. And you can see on my channel, you can see a lot of the ministry work. I did a lot of street healing, and I loved preaching about hell. Ever since I was young, I wanted to pray to visit there and have dreams about it. And then I got what I wished for, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have prayed for that.
So, did you keep to yourself when you were a kid, or did you have a lot of friends? Did you always feel like a spiritual weirdo? How was it like growing up in your world? Did you come from any trauma, etc.?
My mom died when I was 4, so maybe that's why I have such a strong connection. My underworld experience was completely consumed by the devouring mother, by Kali. From even the point where I was in the heavenly part of it beforehand, Kali was I saw that energy everywhere, even though I didn't know it was Kali at the time. So I was I like being the center of attention. I like leading other kids. I was a very kind of aggressive kid because boys without mothers are more like kind of like that way.
How did that even happen? You were raised Christian, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Kali comes to you?
Well, it's in matter of fact, it started in my awakening with and it started with I was gonna move. I was gonna go to Las Vegas, go to Sin City, move there. I was proceeding to it, listening to a lot of frankincense, or listening to a lot of frequency music. I burned a huge amount of frankincense, and I was just like meditating, enjoying, listening to various kind of very low level spiritual stuff, just kind of dipping my toes in. And I was chanting to this star, which is actually my public name, Lugal. So I was chanting to Lugal because I just had an ancient astrology reading. And then I lay down to meditate, and everything's different. I feel like I don't need to eat. I don't need to sleep. I'm seeing the world through triangles. And one of the things that happened with the triangles that later of fact I knew was Kali was that it's like a triangle and a dot everywhere. Triangle and a dot. I saw this in 3 in 1. And so I experienced that. And then after the fact, I realized the dot, I associated it with like kind of the death of the ego. It was proceeding before when I fully had the unravelings. So that was the point before everything. Yeah.
So maybe you can bring us back into a little bit more detail. What exactly happened that day? Did you were you in the hospital, or did you get into an accident, or how beforehand, or you just went into a deep state on your own, doing meditation and all that? Because you were talking beforehand that you weren't eating.
Well,
Correct
no,
me if
that
I'm wrong.
wasn't what it didn't. It happened. It brought the state came to me, and then after the fact, I didn't eat or sleep or all of
Okay.
that. It was the state that put me into that first thing, and I slipped out of time. And I'm telling you, it's time and an eternity are in a dance with each other. There's it's so funny to describe it because I had so many experiences compacted in each day. But proceeding to it, just most frankincense I ever burned in my entire life. Like this handful. Just really chant it and then just lay down. So it astrologically was Saturn opposing my moon. And then what got me out of the underworld was Jupiter Venus conjunction. So it was Saturn opposing my lunar return during that.
So maybe you can help us paint a picture of what the underworld looked like to you, because when you hear underworld being in the West, people are thinking the devil, hell, eternal fire, and all that stuff. What was the underworld like to you in your experience?
The underworld was like to me. There were so many different processes of how I descended to the lowest depths. What transitioned it, I had the heavenly experience, I felt the oneness, and the climax of it, there was a being that came to me and said, "What do you want?" And that was the climax of what I call the 3 and the 4. So that climax, and there was all this thunderings, all these lightnings, kind of how you hear in the Bible. And I felt this intense fire. I thought I was going to literally die from the fire. And I had an offer I had something communicating with me through maybe you'd call the dark web, or the internet was speaking to me. And I was in such a high frequency state that the frame rate on my phone was flashing because my brain was so, and I saw Sadhguru there. Sadhguru was on the phone, and there was this video with this lady in this like kind of hotspot in India. And he's like, "Oh, if she kept meditating, she would just die." And so I guess it felt like it was inviting me. If I wanted to leave this world, I could have just not slept, not ate. And yeah, I would have died because of the intense state, but I continued on. And so how it transitioned into the underworld was that being spoke to me, and then I transitioned into kind of a paranoia state. Everything became a terror to me. I could feel darkness physically. I could feel light going through my body. And it shifted into a very amazing point where one of my friends, she's like one of the best representations of Lilith I've met. And she comes to me. And at this point, I'm seeing, I would say 50 to 60%, or 40 to 50% in the spirit world overlaid on the physical. So she is coming to me, and she's a very addicted person, and I don't see her often. And we went out to a field in the middle of the night, and there was the half moon and 2 stars, and we wrestled all night. And not physically, but with the polarity. I felt perfectly in the center between both duality, and we were arguing about something the whole night. And then at transition, I was institutionalized because I was acting very strange. I had never been in the spirit world, like never. Nothing in my entire life comes close to this ever. Nothing. And not even I've tried psychedelics. This is nothing, like no psychedelic ever. And so it transitions as I go to the institution, what happens is they say we need to round you out. The spirits that were there, they said we need to round you out, and it transitioned into a very peaceful place. I'm like, this is where the cells are, or this is where the smaller beings. And I had this very innate knowledge of what it would be like, this empathy for lower beings. Shiner talked about the Underworld possibly being this more microscopic route, and like in Egypt, the insects, right? So I started to shift in that. It was peaceful, but there was a catch here. In between that state of meeting Lilith, I had been like embodying my inner demon, my most dark self, my most vampiric self. And I was actually seeing before there a lot of stuff on the dark web, or whatever you would call it, was being channeled to my phone somehow. And the crazy part is I can go into my YouTube watch times when I was clearly watching tons of spiritual videos. Nothing's there. It's gone. To this day, when I go to that. And it was the parasitical part of myself and those spirits coming in, matching that frequency I was in. I felt very bloodthirsty, very very dark, very powerful. We're like it's kind of like the fallen masculine in a way. I felt like a counterpoint to Lilith. I felt like we were in a relationship or something. And I had never thought any thoughts like this. I was always like, oh, I don't like scary things. I don't like dark things my whole life. And then I shift into this side of myself, the darker side. When I'm going through, like I said, the cell stages, I start to realize the place that I'm at, there is a parasitical, there's limited supply energy. So if I breathe, I'm killing somebody. If I stay alive, I'm killing somebody. If I want to make it alive out of this place, I have to kill. And it was the energy of breathing. And so in my mind, it was like, oh, I'm breathing, so I'm taking another's life. And previously, I had never been in a state like that. So it was like really, really interesting, that dark side of myself. It then shifted into, there was 6 rooms, not 7, 6. And there was the fertility goddess, like the big, heavy fertility goddess was on the door. And there were these very, very, very fat women that were eating 24/7. They're eating and eating and eating. And in the 6th room was Hitler in World War II. Mind you, my lineage, most of my ancestors died in the Holocaust. So I have some kind of karma, some kind of karmic connection to World War II of some sort.
Yeah.
So in that state, I wanted to be like Hitler. I wanted to devour, I wanted to kill all of those things inside of me. And I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't have, when I was there, I didn't do anything violent or anything like that. But in my heart, there was that evil. There was that side of myself I had never seen coming up to the surface. And I saw something else too. I saw the creativity of evil inside of myself, the energy to create destruction. And I have a myriad of stories of each one of these things that I could go into detail. But I just want to take us through the whole thing. As I transitioned from those 6 rooms, what was interesting was I was wondering about a way out. I'm like, okay, do I use telekinesis? How do I get out of here? Okay. And it's kind of terrifying. This is where it starts to get terrifying in those 6 rooms. I can feel the empathy of everything, like plants. I can feel like the plant that I'd taken home was in a plastic bag, and I'm like feeling this compassion for this plant. And I had already experienced the level of the compassion when I was experiencing the bliss, that pure love. But it was weird to have both the immense darkness inside of myself with the compassion for lower things at the same time. And kind of, they call it, some people, it's like mirroring to me. It's mirroring to me all my darkness. So it transitions. I saw a man They put a white garment on his head and very dark skin. And what happened is he was able to be let out of there. They escorted him out of here, but he put on this white garment on his head. So some kind of ritual. So I started to do this, and I started, maybe I need to pray or something. So I was then moved to a different location. And this location was so peaceful, so neutral, not the darkness that I had in that previous room, just very neutral. And I felt, I'm getting chills right now talking about it. I felt these ancient ones, these ancient spirits. I'm like, who are these? Are these like people from the Bible? Like, who am I dealing with? And they feel so familiar. And there we would sit and watch the sun. And yeah, just very, very peaceful. But after the peace was over with, it transitioned into, I felt like the worst evil in the world. I felt like Hitler. And there was a lady that I had felt like I put her in the camps or something like that. I'm not saying I did, but I had felt like all the bad in the world I had given to them. And there was this lady that later, what I knew that was the Divine Mother. And so what's very interesting is that I met Lilith first in the upper world. She directed me into the underworld, but in the underworld I saw the pure, and I learned the purest divine beauty of the Divine Mother. And so she's a very important part to play. There was this impression that I was under, because this is a trickster realm. A lot of what's happening, it's me getting tricked over and over and over again, but there are true elements in it. Like so we would go through these times where like there was a priest and we took communion, her and I, but it was like very unholy, very kind of dark. I thought that I was going to get tortured in every single person's place. There was only a limited amount of humans, and I was going to have to be tortured in every person's experience. And then the next part, thinking, oh yes, I met my I feel like she's my feminine side. She said, I'm Judith A. Buchanan. And she was this old lady, and she would speak very cryptically, these messages. And she was the real guide. She was the central figure in this entire thing. It kind of guided me through the different locations. She was like a permanent fixture. And my relationship to my feminine side was so bad that when I was being tortured in there, she was fine. But she was being tortured, I was fine. Showing me this is my kind of my relationship with the feminine. So I was working through this situation with her. She was telling me how I got all the good and she got all the bad. We're trading places. And I couldn't quite figure out much that was going on there. I'm like, why am I here? Like, I don't know. Why are you here? And there was a lot of different tortures I went through that I learned different things. In addition to, I met what you can call her Ma'at, or the judge. And it's like the prayers would speak through her. She would speak my fears, but as if they weren't mine, but she would speak them. And there was a very, 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 very important ritual where the Divine Mother was like this on the side. The judge was here, and I was with my feminine side, and we sat as the judge. There was some kind of trading places or exchange that happened. So after I was sentenced, it felt like, after I went through this, then I descended way lower, like way, way darker, way, way darker. And there's nothing more terrifying or horrifying than that eternal feeling, and seeing a lot of this. You feel like you're never getting out, and you're learning so much. So,
said you were in the Trickster Realm. What was the whole purpose of the Trickster Realm?
Well, I feel that Underworld, at least for my experience, was a very a very trickster-like place.
Hmm.
I don't know. Why do you think you're here? And they have like very kind of malicious energy and everything. Because they didn't want me. I felt that I wasn't supposed to understand with words. Because everything that was taught me, 99% was not with words. There was one symbol that was on the wall. And I met two other people that went to a similar Underworld experience in the location that I was in. And they saw V, U, and V. And then after I came out of the experience, it wasn't on the wall. It was only on the wall when I was in the spirit. And I interpreted that as the feminine and the masculine. And kind of like, I'm here, and then this is the part of it.
Thank you. Did you see any other types of spirits or energies that you were familiar with?
The words of Thoth came to me.
Mm.
Travel, and it kept saying over and over, travel in curves and not in angles. I'm so grateful to have read the Emerald Tablet. These words from Thoth guided me. They talked about not going into all the rooms. At first, I was going into all of the rooms. I was stepping into all of them. Okay, I need to look at this room and this room and this. I need to. At first, the Trickster Realm, it was speaking to me. I felt like I needed to go into all the rooms. It was like, bad idea. No, don't go in all the rooms. So I eventually figured out I'm not supposed to go into all the rooms and travel in curves and not in angles. And there was this bald black man with a Middle Eastern accent. And I was like, whoa. After the fact, I'm like, this is Anubis. He put me on these scales. And even down there, I recognized this was Anubis because I'm like, can you take me to the scales? And as first I step on it and I have weight. And then I purified my intentions. I purified my heart. I tried to forgive everyone that I had anything in my heart against. Really, those traditional things that people say. And then my weight went to 0.0. So, yeah.
Kind of like the ancient Kemetic story of weighing the heart, right? Versus against the feather.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And at that point of the story, it was of like an interactive puzzle. If I stepped one way, all these people would walk in the door and out. So the spirits it felt like I'm a rat in a maze. And I walk one way and the door opened. And it's like, you're not leaving here until you learn your lessons. And because it's outside of time. So I'm like here. It felt like at least 30 days. If you could even put time on it. Which it's eternity. But the amount of experiences that I felt 30 days without sleep. So more like 60 days. But what's very important after the Anubis experience is that I needed to walk with my feminine side down the center of the room. There was it was the shape of like a hexagon. There was the altar and then like a holy of holies. This is what I understood and on some level. And I needed to walk with her in the center to where the you could call it altar or outer court is. And Anubis told me I needed to speak to this kind of examiner or this this kind of person, and I went with my anima. And I guess we got approved, we traded places, we traded shoes. There was this weird exchange there. After that, I walked down the center 40 times and I was praying, let me come back here with my whole heart. I was begging with the divine to let me come back to this realm with every fiber of my being. I'm telling you, I have never been so grateful to be back to any place. When I came out of the experience, I felt heaven. Everything is heaven. And I'm in a mentalist. I've never been so happy. I have never been so happy in my entire life. And after I came back and I saw the blessing of everything, the blessing of air, the blessing of water, the blessing of time, that what is to be feared is not eternity. What is to be feared is time. That's the thing that's painful. So even though that was painful, I felt it purified so much of me. And I think I did get more of the traditional side of hell, maybe because that was my upbringing or something, but it really brought so much restoration and an ability to heal myself after that.
You said that was your upbringing. How did you perceive your upbringing with hell? I mean, did they often talk about hellfire at church, or you just had a misunderstanding, or how did that
I'm very
affect your?
smart. I'm very plutonic. I'm very when the Vedics look at my chart, they say a lot of underworld, a lot of those energies in me. So without any prompting, I gravitated towards the most extreme, like Jonathan Edwards, sinners in the hands of an angry God. I love that stuff because that's my demon. My demon is like Shiva energy in the sense that I want the destruction of the world for the new. This is why I think I incarnated here, because this is the unraveling of the world. I think I came here to express that creation energy and bring about a positive change from it. But I think up to a level I thrive on that, chaos and that real, like, you're emerging out of the cocoon, you're emerging out of the depths and everything. And I think that's why my higher self blessed me with this experience.
And you basically went down and faced your shadow aspects, right?
I became them and I faced them all at the same time.
Yeah. And whether people like believe you or not, you came out a different person. It seems like. Who were you before, and how are you now? How has this experience had shifted your worldview or reality?
So before, I was more this plane, more interested in this plane. Spiritual disposition, yes. But mainly seeing through the psychological lens. Shifting out of the experience, the person it changed me into. For the times after leaving the underworld, I had all of this disintegration that I had to deal with. I had thousands of voices kind of torturing me. I was walking in a literal horror movie. And I had to learn to meditate. I sat from morning till evening meditating. And this took care of all the voices, all of the insanity, all of that. And I was brought back into my center. And all of my remember how they said, we need to round you out? Kali cut off all my masculinity. The masculine force. I had no attachments. I had no desire to do anything in the world. I just was, and that's okay. And I just wanted to meditate and just be chill. Well, before, I was a very driven person. And slowly over time, I gained more of my like this self, integrated it back to me. So I have a lot of the drive, but to this day, it shifted my career. It shifted my career into doing what I feel called to, which is the esoteric, the spiritual, all of this realm. I'm starting an intentional community. I became a vegetarian because of my empathy for animals, for people, all of this, and wanting to overthrow the parasitical systems, because I saw the parasite in myself. I saw the parasite being possessed by that evil. I felt that energy. So I want to help alleviate suffering, since I experienced such great suffering there. So that's the way it's changed me, is really dedicate my life to service, both to the earth, to the mother. Because one of the climaxes of the event when I was there was the glory and absolute horror of the mother. And it sounds so crazy. The amount of terror was so incredibly vast, but it was like a Bach, that music that's awe-inspiring. The terror that I experienced was so like grand that to this day there's a level of reverence that I gained through that terror. And I understood the way that I understood it there in the Trickster Realm was the mother is this parasite that is on her way through everything and in everyone. So it's painted in the most dark light possible. Maybe because I was part of a culture that's very patriarchal. But that connection to the mother, I still am. I see glimpses. I'm able to tap into just knowing that everyone is an extension of the mother. Everything. That she's the spider lady, and I saw her in previous spiritual experience, in future spiritual experiences since then. I saw this spider, and I saw it in myself, of
Hmm.
us being many, many universes inside of us and outside of us, and all of the eyes, all of the consciousness, that everything is consciousness, and that we really need to. I've changed in that the reverence towards everything, and really trying my best to align myself with reverence for these the gods, the divine. Whereas before I didn't understand any. I don't feel like I understood hardly anything before the experience.
Yeah, thank you. Were you identified with your body, or did you have an outer body experience when you were in the underworld?
I completely stayed in my body, but there were times where my body, I felt, was starting to become subhuman on some level. It was
Hmm.
starting to become some other kind of abyss creature. I knew that I believed that if I would have stayed there and physically died, I would have become into some kind of um, abyss creature of some kind.
Hmm.
That was my thought when I was done.
So, what's the difference? I usually ask people this. What's the difference between spirituality and religion for you?
Religion is preservative. Religion is the force of Ahriman. It is preserving. It's like putting a big barrier and structure around the divine so that you get a delayed release. It's kind of
Hmm.
like with dating. I mean, you're not going to want to have fun on the first date. It might not last that long. I mean, sometimes, but the key is that religion is going to hide the divine from people. So there's going to be a delayed release. There's going to be a resistance, because that's fun. You want to have it slowly. You don't want to just be revealed all at once. That's why we're here. That's why we're here, because it's so glorious to slowly, see glimpses and beauty. So the difference between, you said, spirituality and religion, is that the spirituality is, you're already kind of past the phase where you need the authority, you need the energy of the Kali Yuga to enslave you. You now can just start going and diving into a much more open place, rather than participating with angry angry deities. I'm just thinking about more of the fundamentalist groups, but in general, I think religion is a beautiful thing, and is the right hand path rather than the left hand path. And I feel
Hmm.
uh, religion is an integral part of being human, and an integral part of the divine in its more structured place. And we should really um, do what our soul feels right, whether it's the right hand or the left hand path, whether it's more devotional, or whether it's more esoteric, more edgy energy, or whatever you want to think about it.
Yeah, thank you. How do you look at Jesus these days?
Thank you. I'm both terrified of Jesus, because I've seen him, I've seen the power, I've seen at the climax of my awakening, I saw the image was glitched onto my phone, or whatever you want to say it, of Christ on fire on the horse. And it's like, it reminds me of the native tales about the sky people bursting through the sky. So I feel, on one hand, I feel he's a divine conqueror of some sort, coming to, take over this realm by force. And so on the one hand, I'm like that. On the other hand, I see him as helping humans to evolve and crystallize in our individuality, and start to become our own universe inside of ourselves.
Hmm.
And I see him as the first of many that will come like him, in terms of the ascension beings, and us
Hmm.
developing all of the esoteric organs and energies and all of those things we need. So I see both sides. I think someone so great, like Jesus, has to have both of these sides. Just like I saw the Divine Mother, I saw the beauty, and I saw the terror. So Christ is no different. I am, in certain states, completely terrified, and in certain states, I feel the warmth, I feel the beauty, I feel the life. But something such transformational in that change, it depends. The subjectivity is, who are you? Because with Christ brought the crystallization of religion and the evils of that, but it was necessary. And it's like the unification of the world. One of the Gnostic texts says that, he says that I will throw fire on the earth and I'm not coming back till it is ablaze. So I see it as very much creation, destruction kind of energy, but I also see it as self-empowerment to become the higher dimensional version of you, rise above the conditioning, rise above this thing, and really embrace in yourself at the highest and your best without forgetting the lower. Because we're not free until we free others. We're not free until we regard other beings beyond human. It says in the scripture, in the Bible, it says, preach the gospel to all creation, not all people, all creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And that, for me, that's love. For me, that's love, because all creation, animals don't speak English, but they understand love. You know, if I go to a different country, they may not understand me, but they understand my actions of love. So that's how I see it. You don't have to agree, but
No,
yeah.
I agree. I just think love has a terrifying side as equally as it has a beautiful side.
Oh, you talked about eternity. How would you describe eternity?
Eternity is seeing that time is a lie, and eternity is stepping into the fourth dimension, seeing the things that are present, the higher, like Russian dolls that are in all things, and being able to interface with them, with the gods, with the spirits. To be outside of time is to be in the place where we all come from. While we're sojourning in this illusion down here, eternity is always there in everything, and that's what each one of us, I think, seeks, is this expansion into the transcendent in every part of life, whether it's buying as much stuff as possible to kind of do it materially, or it's some other phase. We're all striving towards eternity in some capacity.
Yeah, thank you. Do you believe in reincarnation?
I 1,000% believe in reincarnation. I think that people should be careful with themselves and careful with other beings because of implications. Even if they don't believe in karma, it's bare minimum good to, just in case, to be careful towards one's future self and towards the whole quadrant, the whole seasons, the whole. I mean, who's to say that when we are not in here, that we've made another thing that's up here to suffer, and then we trade places here. This is how I see the universe, is that there's all these parts of us, and that if we don't handle this sphere right, we go into a jurisdiction that we're worthy of, good or evil, and then continuing. And then based on, like, it's like this whole dance, this whole 4 seasons and cycle and circle. So I'm trying to convince people with the intentional community to start understanding, even the Christians. The Bible says, I will destroy those who destroy the earth. That how we treat the earth and how we treat the divine, how we treat all these things is always going to come back to us, for good or for evil.
You mentioned the Bible a number of times. Do you believe in God or no God? How do you look at that? If you don't mind me asking.
The truth would sit in between both of those. The truth would be neither of those. But my lower self, I have experiences with a lot of different deities. Each one of us is a deity. I think that you can see everything as one. So God is everywhere. There is deities, there's beings. I think thought forms become gods if enough people believe in it. We can become gods. The more purified we become, the more the more we burn away ourselves. Or we can see the world. However we see the world is what we're going to experience, however we believe and however we see. So if we believe there's only the material, well, you're in luck. You're turning into the material. I mean, if you really act on that incarnation after incarnation, lucky for you, you know, you're gonna eat that and enjoy, and that's not a bad thing. That's just depends on what you want. So,
do you consider yourself living on a spiritual basis these days?
yes, I think that that's all I want to do, because this world is for me personally. The material has been very lackluster in terms of like, my soul just craves so much more expansiveness. And I guess my key as being more spiritually oriented is finding the beauty and the life in the mundane, in nature and all of that, in my body, and really fully doing that while I have my fun with all of the esoterica and the mysteries and play around with that.
Yeah, thank you. You have any last words? Anything you would like to expand on that comes to mind?
I believe each one of us has a part of us in the underworld, in hell, that's suffering right now in some way. And I just want us to take a moment and honor and offer blessings and honor and compassion to that side of ourselves that's still there right now. I also wanted to say, we're all the mother. We're all an extension of the mother. And the more that we can see the mother in everything and everyone, and fear her as well as love her, we're going to have so much more beauty. And the reason I'm saying this is because our society has been so patriarchal in Western countries, and all the technology is more the antithesis to a lot of the more feminine energies. So that's why I feel like I want to balance out a little bit of that.
And you said fear her. Can you explain why?
You are her. You can't hurt her without hurting yourself. You can't hurt yourself without hurting her. So if you really understand how dark certain parts of the universe can be, and how dark certain parts of the divine can be, in terms of like the locations I went, if you understand there's locations you can create for yourself, you can put yourself in the worst hells possible. I mean, you would treat with care if we understood all of the beings that are supporting us just to be here right now. I mean, we would be very, very careful and have a reverence towards all these things. So the fear is not it's a caution to, like, take care of yourself, take care of other people, take care of other beings outside of yourself.
So did you experience what some of the Buddhists may call hell realm, you believe?
Absolutely. You could call it the Duat, you could call it the Bardos, you could call it a lot of different things.
So how would you describe the oneness of life, if you don't mind me asking?
It's like looking at somebody or something as it's the only thing ever. That's it. You're interacting with everything like it's the only thing that there ever was and ever will be. I think that's the enlightened state. Could be wrong, but that's my theory, is that interacting everything, like, it's like you two are the only one here, whether it's a plant, whether it's the air, or whether it's everything. It's interacting with it. That's it.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on. I really do. You have a lot of insights. I can't wait to rewatch this. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations and happy anniversary to your awakening. You know, without the mud, there's no lotus flower, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, the Buddha said, "Love the world as a mother loves her only child," and I feel that in you, so I really appreciate it.
I want to share one story for my stepmom. It's real quick.
Sure.
There was a lady, and she's in hell, and she's being tortured, like some of the traditional representations. Buddha extends a leaf to her. She grabs onto the leaf, and she's being pulled out. She's like, "Oh, I'm leaving here." No. And other people are grabbing her foot, and she starts to shove them back into the underworld, push them off her leg. As soon as she does that, the leaf breaks in half, and she stays in hell.
Right. Thank you. Quick question. Between Jesus, Buddha, and Krishna, is there a difference?
The difference would be the stage of human evolution. I see time
Mm.
as a location. So I see them each similar energies, but humans were at different stages in spiritual and physical development at each time.
Mm.
So, but I think
Yeah.
cut from a very similar cloth. So
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
thank you.
Thank you. And how can we find you?
You can find me on Lugal's World here on YouTube, and Lugal_tarot on Instagram if people want readings or want to connect. And yeah.
Lugal, thank you. Have a good one.